Welcome to Life Center University, where we talk about real issues affecting real people and introduce you to community partners who can provide real help. Today is part 2 of talking with Chris and Robin Bouet about navigating the rough waters of a blended family.
Let's talk a little bit about in crisis mode, because what we found is in the blended family arena, especially if you have teenagers that are blended, if you have young kids coming through to teenagers, you're going to have crisis. It's not if, it's when, and it's the level of crisis. So two keys for that is high communication and high relationship in crisis. Now you may say, I don't really have that strong a relationship yet with all the kids. Well, communication then. Anticipate issues and getting them out on the table as soon as possible. Being a place not of conflict, but of saying what you really mean. In other words, you can disagree without being disagreeable. Helping you guys and the kids actually skill build in this is important. So that people can say truly what they feel, truly what's in their heart, without super offending, because there's more level of trust. And as parents, you want to make sure that you're empathizing with your co-parent, truly, because they are going through pain that you may not be feeling. And with the kids, because on a constant basis, your kids have things they're having to deal with many times that you are not around. And sometimes you only see them part of the time, and so your experience is that time, not necessarily when they're with the other parents. So empathizing is important.
Another thing you want to do is you really want to encourage your kids to be open about their feelings. One thing that we talked about a lot is I feel blank when blank happens, and just really helping them to get a vocabulary around their feelings. I feel frustrated, I feel angry, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel disjointed, so they're just really helping them put words to that, and then helping them tell me more about that. And sometimes that's really painful, right? When your kids are like, I feel uncomfortable with you. It's like, oh, I'm really bummed about that because that's not what I'm trying to do, but tell me more about that, and then how can I help?
I remember talking about face control. When our children would tell us things that would just be so painful, but yet they were not
crushing.
They were not at a place to talk about it. And having to be the parent, and with the win, remember, of what we were trying to accomplish, investing in our kids, we needed to make sure that we gave them what they could handle, not simply just allowing them to be our therapy.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That's a good one. The phrase, how can I help? So Chris and I noticed this kind of unhealthy situation that we didn't really care for, and that was nobody was helping anybody. And so what we did is we started saying to them, how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you? Because what we wanted to do is we wanted to model helping one another instead of, just hoarding all the resources. And what was interesting is as we started saying that to each other and to them, all of a sudden then we started seeing that coming back to us, which was really encouraging. You want to try to give the kids a way to express themselves. And one of the things that I did, and what's so interesting is at the time that it was happening, you would have thought that I was torturing the kids. But during the summer, what I did is I had each of the kids have a 1-hour rest time. And it was just in the summer. I had a job that was flexible so I could actually check in and make sure that was happening. But as long as they lived in our home, of course, little kids, usually get rest times, but what we did is we had it in our home until they were basically gone. And what that was is they had 1 hour in the afternoon that they needed to be supine in their bed, write, scribble, or draw in a journal, stream of consciousness, anything to give them a way to get their feelings out. And they really hated this. I was surprised because I would even bake them cookies sometimes and take it up to them just to try to make it a better experience. They grumbled and complained and hated it, But what is so funny, so why we did that is because they needed a place to be quiet and still. And I know, just like you know, that when they grow up, they're not going to have an hour in the afternoon in the summer. And so that's going to become something really important to them. What's interesting about that, as much as they complained, we were sitting around the table probably 6 months ago. And one of our daughters said, "Hey, did you know that that is actually a writing technique, stream of consciousness?" And I was like, I actually did know that, but that's okay. And what's so interesting is all of our kids in one form or another are artists, poets, writers, they're songwriters. It's amazing. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason, but it definitely did give them lots of repetition of doing that activity. And it also gave them a way to express situations that were really, really painful for them.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a point around that, to be willing to grow with your kids. I remember one of the kids saying to me, "I can't believe you guys are making us do this." And then looked at me and said, "You wouldn't do this if we didn't have to, would you?" And remember, honesty, best policy. So I said, probably wouldn't, but I'm growing too. And just being candid with the kids on, okay, well, everybody has to grow. And I didn't hear as many complaints. A couple other things that we want to finish up with. First of all, be aware. Be aware of what's going on. Be conscious of what's going on with your kids. Robin's great at this. She is has a radar for this.
Well, and we had tough stuff going on. We're not going to go into it now, but we did not have an easy path. We had very typical teenage activities that all teenagers are dealing with. So I think you know the subtext there. And so it was very challenging. So to be aware and honest about what is actually happening in your home is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to constantly and consciously choose to create the way your family should be going. Think about this. Spend time with your kids in doing regular stuff, like when you're driving them to places. Think about that as engagement time, not taxi time. We have, for years, architected things so that we could bring the kids along. Spending time in a way and activity, looking for that engagement really is super important. In fact, we've spent good money on things that we may not want to do alone, but doing it with the kids, absolutely.
Dave and Buster's. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's another whole nother thing.
Yeah, we'll do another video on Dave and Buster's.
Yeah. So you want to be the parent who drives. Volunteer as much as you can. Take your kids to Chipotle. I know, my gosh, with 5 kids, we took them out to breakfast newly when we were newly together, and it was like breaking the bank. So, I mean, you just really have to work through, the cost benefit of the things that you're doing. So we were able to find some things like parks and things that were a little bit cheaper than Chipotle for 7. You want to be as open and aware of the potential issues as possible. Like I said, the sooner you honestly address them and communicate about them, the better, definitely to one another and the kids. Before you get married, you want to talk about obvious issues, where the kids are going to sleep, where do they keep their stuff, which home you're going to live in. What happened is I owned a home and Chris sold his home, and he and the girls moved in with us. And that was really, it worked out well, but I am sure that was, kind of challenging because there were turf issues. This is my house, that kind of thing. But we talked ahead of time about making sure that everybody had a room. We actually even had to build on to the house because the house was not very big and we built on. But you want to anticipate those as much as possible. And then when you can't anticipate them, be kind to one another. One of the things that we did do is we actually had to, when we got married and we blended our families into my home, the home that was mine, we actually had to build out the attic for the boys. And in the meantime, Chris and I actually needed to put our bedroom in the living room.
In the living room.
So the reason why I share that story is you can only imagine the exes had some real heyday with that. So it all needs to be managed, and you need to remember everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that didn't last forever.
Yeah. Remember in crisis that communication and relationships are vital. Vital that when you're going through a crisis, your kids are going through crisis that they may have never gone through before. That you may be much more equipped to handle it than they are. So remember to communicate. Communicate about your process, communicate about how they're reacting and acting. And remember to keep building your relationships through this. Remember to empathize. Empathize with your co-laborer parent and empathize with your kids. Encourage your kids to be open about their feelings. Remember to ask, how can I help? Give the kids a way to express themselves. And remember, you might have to teach and train. You all might have to learn how to express yourself so that you can coach each other. Be aware of what's going on with the family and with your kids, and be intentional, be very intentional about what you're building and growing.
And then I think really the most important thing that we've learned is it's all about relationship. We keep that relationship intact at all costs. So it's relationship, yours with your partner as well as yours with your children.
Yeah.
Blending families from previous marriage is not easy. These videos are filled with tips that can help your family thrive in complicated situations. Remember, it's everyone's job to grow through new situations. Building relationships with your kids and spouse, and then keeping those relationships intact at all cost will help you become a stronger blended family.